Welcome to the June 11, 2025 City of Mesa Planning and Zoning Board meeting, public hearing. We would start by having a roll call. Chair Ayers is excused. I'm Vice Chair Pitcher. Board Member Peterson?
Here.
Board Member Montez is also excused. Board Member Blakeman?
Here.
Board Member Carpenter?
Here.
And Board Member Farnsworth is excused as well. As part of today's agenda, we'll have a consent agenda. It will be read into the record and acted in one motion. They will not be discussed individually. And we don't have any other matters that are coming off the consent agenda, correct? Okay. So Board Member Peterson is kindly agreed to read it. Thank you.
Items on the consent agenda for the Wednesday, June 11th Planning and Zoning Board meeting. Item 2A, minutes from the May 28th, 2025 Planning and Zoning Board meeting. Take action on the following zoning case. Item 3A, ZON 25-00082 Culvers, 1.5 acres located approximately 850 feet west of the northwest corner of East McKellips Road and North Gilbert Road. Major site plan modification for the development of an approximately 4,106, that's pretty specific for approximately, square foot limited service restaurant with drive-through. Recommendation is approval with conditions. Discuss and take action on the following preliminary plat. Item 6A, ZON 24-01090 Mountain Vista. 24.7 acres located approximately 1,900 feet west of the southwest corner of the intersection of East Hampton Avenue and South Signal Beat Road. Preliminary plat to create 7 commercial lots. Recommendation is approval with conditions. Item 7B, PZ 25055, proposed amendments to chapters 81 and 87 of Title 11 of the Mesa City Code pertaining to adaptive reuse permits. The amendments include, but are not limited to, modifying terms within Chapter 81 to reflect eligibility of existing commercial office and mixed-use parcels rather than buildings, modifying the adaptive reuse permit application cap, changing the zoning districts in which adaptive reuse permits are allowed, clarifying the applicable development standards, modifying the definitions for adaptive reuse permit, low-income housing, moderate-income housing, multiple residence reuse, removing the definition of existing commercial office and mixed-use building, and adding a definition of existing commercial office and mixed-use parcel. Recommendation is adoption. Item 7C, PZ 25056, proposed amendments to chapters 30, 31, and 87 of Title 11 of the Mesa City Code pertaining to accessory dwelling units, detached accessory buildings or structures, and home occupations. The amendments include, but are not limited to, modifying the gross floor area requirements for detached accessory buildings or structures, modifying the setback requirements for accessory dwelling units, modifying the specific use and activities standards for home occupations, adding the definition of building addition, modifying the definition of home occupations. Recommendation is adoption.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
Please vote. It passes unanimously, so we will proceed with the items that were pulled off of the consent agenda. First matter is the Beverly Apartments. It's item 4A on the agenda. Now, do you want to give the presentation? Again, unless the board doesn't want it. You want the presentation again?
No.
Thank you, Evan. We don't need you again. But what we'll do is we'll open the public hearing portion of the meeting. We have one blue card, and Madison Reynolds. What we'll do, come on up. But what we do is you have 3 minutes to make your presentation. If there's then what we'll do is we'll have the applicant also present if need be, and then we'll have our vote. So please.
Good afternoon. My name is Madison Reynolds. I live off 239 North Beverly, so right down the street from this development and one other development. representing the Beverly community. While we recognize that growth is part of Mesa's future, we remain deeply concerned about the scale, pace, and impact of the two proposed developments on Beverly, the Lofts development and the Beverly Apartments development. Our top priority is safety, especially for pedestrians, school children, seniors, and people with disabilities. These streets aren't just roads, they're part of daily life. People walk their dogs here, children ride bikes, parents push strollers. Potentially tripling traffic to over 1,000 daily trips will put lives at risk and permanently change the character of this neighborhood. Let's be clear, the current traffic study only accounts for the Lofts development, not both developments combined. Until a new study is done while school is in session, no claim about traffic impact is reliable. Planning decisions should be based on verified data. We appreciate the suggestion of speed cushions, but that treats the symptom, not the cause. The real issue is overdensity on a residential street never built for this volume of traffic. The City of Mesa's Safer Streets Initiative commits to reducing deaths and serious injuries from crashes by 30% by 2030. Potentially tripling traffic on Beverly, especially near schools, goes against that goal. We're not anti-growth, but growth must be responsible, balanced, and shaped by community input. We want to be part of shaping the future, not steamrolled by it. So we offer 3 clear, reasonable solutions. 1, reduce the density. Give 42 units to the Lofts and 24 units for the Beverly Apartments. Second option, add a gate on Beverly. If density can't be reduced, protect the street from cut-through traffic by making an exception to the policy and put a gate on Beverly. If neither of those are options, then postpone the projects. If financing only works at densities that overwhelm the neighborhood and put residents at risk, then the project isn't feasible. Postpone the projects, including Beverly Apartments, until interest rates and construction costs allow for a plan that balances density, safety, and financial viability. We urge the city to prioritize people over policy and safety over speed of development. Our community deserves development that enhances, not endangers, our quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you. The applicant is here. Have you come up and?
Thank you. For your record, Taylor Earl with the law firm of Earl & Curley. Our address is 3101 North Central Avenue in Phoenix. I'm happy to answer any questions related to that. What I will say just as a precursor is that we have a relatively very small development. We currently have 12 units on site. This has been used for multifamily for a very long time. Our proposal is to go to 36 units. The major thing that's changed over the past several decades is that the city invested incredible amounts of time, energy, and resources into developing the light rail. And so this area is fundamentally different than it was. We have had, the city's transportation team has looked at this specific question. I understand that there's a development across the street, and I understand that the neighbors have concern about that. I can't speak to that development. I think it's being proposed at 66 units, and what that can do. We're so small, we weren't even required to do a traffic study. I know that there have been ongoing email exchanges between Madison and the council office regarding that concern, the desire to maybe gate Beverly. The city has said that that's not something that the city would do. And so you heard Madison suggest, well, maybe we just reduce the density or wait and put the projects basically on hold. I would suggest to you that reducing our project by 12 units would not have any type of noticeable or significant change on that traffic, but it would very much put their project at risk. In this area, what we need density. Density, people are absolutely the lifeblood of mixed use and urban style communities. You can have a great light rail and you can have great restaurants, but if people don't go to them or people don't ride the light rail, the system simply doesn't work. So we're not just next to the light rail, we're next to a light rail station within a quarter of a mile. This is exactly where the city would expect to see density. And from what we've been told, the traffic that exists, even with the proposed projects coming online, would put the average amount of traffic into that neighborhood at a normal range, not at a high range or anything that is excessive. What the city council office has suggested is the notion of speed cushions, and you heard Madison reference to that. I understand that his position is that that's not enough. But if the concern is that there's either cut through or speed, I think that's a reasonable solution that can be pursued to make sure that we're not cutting off a street network, which is not viable. I can tell you the one place that the city of Phoenix did that, down around Central Avenue. They had a community that they gated off that I think I heard reference to from some of the neighborhoods. And I asked the city about that several years ago, and the response was, Taylor, we'll never do that again. It was a mistake. It's a mistake to cut off the ability for people to go to and from, and frankly, it's unclear whether the whole community would even want to have a gate that may break and may have issues with it. But I certainly can understand, but I think we're in a scenario where we don't have an excessive amount of traffic. The units that we're adding would not be any type of significant problem, particularly that we are an affordable project. So we are a low-income housing tax credit project. We expect to be at 50% AMI, and we're really focusing it away from car dependency in this project. We want our residents to be using the light rail, to be using bicycle and modes of transportation. What can be a challenge for people who maybe haven't had the same upbringing in financial literacy is that sometimes they can take on car payments that they will, frankly, pay first over rent, because eviction can be a little bit more forgiving. You can find a new place to live, but if your car is repoed, it's a little harder. And so, frankly, we're not really interested in there being high car dependency in an environment where we're trying to make sure people can pay their rent and keep financial literacy. We're trying to upskill them so they can potentially move on. And so we like this location. We think it's the right place to invest in a building that's well past its useful life, to provide emphasis and to really use the light rail program. And so in particular, not only are we not adding that many units to what's already there from 12 to 36, but also the nature of our development, we will have a far less car-centric development simply because of A, that's our focus, but B, frankly, in low-income housing tax projects, you don't have a high amount of cars because it's a different income level where people don't have the same availability for vehicles. And that's national data, which Ms. Blakeman can certainly speak to as well. I know that, the Transportation Department of the city has looked at this particular question. I know it involves a project in addition to ours, so we're somewhat being kind of involved in a broader discussion. But I'm happy to answer any questions. Obviously, I have a full presentation I can get into, but in light of, I think, a lot of stuff you'll have on your agenda today, I'm mindful of that and happy to do what the board would like me to do.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Sure. Yeah, let me close the public hearing, and then we can have your question on that. We can have a discussion on the board. But I think Board Member Peterson has a question on the traffic engineer if he's here.
Yeah, Ryan, would you mind? Give us your assessment of the area.
Evening, Vice Chair, board members. Ryan Hudson, I'm with the City of Mesa Transportation Department, the city traffic engineer. Happy to answer any questions, Board Member Peterson, if you were looking for something specific or just more of an overview assessment.
Yeah, just more of you heard the comments, just assessment of this, and with what we have before us, this particular project, and your assessment of Beverly and the adjacent streets' ability to handle that capacity.
Sure. So as mentioned before, there was a traffic study that was conducted for the development, the development on the east side of the road. And that part of that study was collecting existing traffic volumes on the street network within the neighborhood where this development sits. So Beverly, as it sits in existing conditions out there today, the traffic volumes are anywhere from 500 to 400, generally speaking, on an average daily traffic volume perspective. The development that we're talking about tonight, coming in with 36 units, taking a very, very conservative perspective, not taking reductions, but taking a conservative approach to what the 36 units would generate for traffic, is somewhere in the range of 200 to 240 trips on an average day. And dispersing that throughout the neighborhood, that would potentially put the volumes that I just spoke to on Beverly, up into the 600, maybe 700 vehicles per day range. That is very comparable to a lot of local residential streets within the City of Mesa's local street network.
What would the trips per day be? At what point would it hit the threshold where you're like, hey, this is getting high, we need to look at some treatment areas? Is it quite a bit higher than that?
Sure. Vice Chair and Board Member Peterson, when we look at traffic volumes on a local residential street, there's kind of like 4 tiers you can look at, just to simplify. 250 vehicles per day or less is very, very low traffic volume, very quiet. You get into the 250 to 500, it's a little bit more moderate, but definitely still considered on the lower end. When we get to 500 to 750 to 800, you're kind of in that tier where it's a little bit more moderate, but definitely within acceptable range. Just for comparison, the City of Mesa does have a speed hump policy, which is a traffic calming strategy for local roads such as this one. And the threshold, one of the thresholds that we look at is vehicles per day. And there is a mention of a 500 vehicles kind of being a level to look at as part of the warrants. And then I see the 4th tier is really that 750 to over 1,000 vehicles per day. Once you get into that 1,000 vehicles per day, it's not really more of a capacity issue. It's more of a quality of life type of situation, and what these roads ultimately serve next to residential land uses. So we feel that with the proposed development, it still falls within that kind of moderate range for a local residential street.
Gotcha, thank you. And there'd been discussion of traffic cushions. Is that in process at the Transportation Department, or is that something the residents would need to talk with your department about?
Board Member Peterson, we have received within the Transportation Department, questions related to this as discussed before. And one of the options that we threw out as a viable alternative to pursue is traffic calming devices, and that being primarily speed cushions. That would be something that would have to be ultimately council directed, at a future time. It's just kind of put out there as that this could be a viable option if staff was directed to pursue that.
Is there a certain number of residents that have to elect to do that?
Vice Chair, per the Mesa speed hump policy, if it was to follow that policy process, yes, there is a very in-depth process to get speed cushions or speed humps installed on a residential local street. Again, if directed by council to take a different route, that could be a possibility. But that's kind of where we stand today.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Real quick, with that study, does that go both north and south on Beverly, or is that looking specifically going north into the neighborhood?
Sure. Vice Chair and Board Member Carpenter. Yeah, great question. The traffic study looks at really all the distribution to and from the site, all the different routes that could be taken from anybody accessing or leaving the site. So it would be, the whole network coming from going to Alma School or Main Street or a university and all the residential streets in between.
Anything else? Thank you. Appreciate that. So if there's no other questions, then I'll entertain a motion on this one.
Vice Chair Pitcher, I think you could probably have a motion on 4A and 5A together because it's the general plan amendment and the rezoning.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion on 4A and 5A. You got to read the whole thing.
All right, I'll make a motion that 4A ZON 24-0152 Beverly Apartments 1.3 acres located at 120 North Beverly, approximately 715 feet north of the northwest corner of West Main Street and North Beverly, rezoned from multiple residence 2, RM2, and multiple residence 3 to multiple residence 4 with a planned area development overlay and a site plan review of a multiple residence development, staff recommendation approval with conditions, and also 5A ZON 25-00203 Beverly Apartments, 1.3 acres located at 120 North Beverly, approximately 715 feet north of the northwest corner of West Main Street and North Beverly. Minor general plan amendment to change the general plan place type from traditional residential with a sustained growth strategy to mixed residential with sustained growth strategy, District 4. Staff recommendation approval with conditions.
And your motion is?
To approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Please vote. Thank you. It is approved unanimously with 3 members absent. So we will continue on then to the next matter that was pulled from the consent agenda. This is item 7A. Unless the members of the board want to have Rachel give her great presentation again, I think we'll just move straight on to the public comment. Does that work for everybody? All right. So what I'll do is, we've got a number of blue cards on this one. I'll read your name if you'd come up. We'll open the public hearing first, and we'll read we'll read your name, and then if you can come up, you've got 3 minutes, and I appreciate it. So we will start, and the public hearing is open, with Ben Graff.
Good evening, Vice Chair Pitcher, members of the commission. My name is Ben Graff. I'm with the law firm of Quarles and Brady, 2 North Central Avenue, Phoenix, Arizona. I'm here tonight representing Nova Holdings, LLC, in regard to their approved data center at the northwest corner of Ellsworth and Warner Roads. Now, when a text amendment like this for data centers goes through the process, there's probably more stakeholders in this, but there's usually 3 main parties to be concerned with. One are landowners that may have the right today to build a data center but haven't proceeded. There are existing built data centers within Mesa that will be impacted by the new law. And then there's where Nova is, my client, which I hope you could agree is the most precarious of the 3, which is they have obtained all entitlements. They have received final site plan, but have not yet broken ground, and yet the law is about to change. Just a little insight into that. Nova has already invested to date $100 million into the purchase of the site and the development. And although there have been comments about the lack of jobs that go with data centers, let's talk about investment for a moment, because we are projected to exceed $3 billion with a B, in costs and investment in Mesa construction by the time this data center is built. And by the way, we appreciate the comment from staff about the design. Nova is known for having, quite frankly, beautiful data centers. Let me point out a few of the concerns that we have. I want to compliment Rachel Phillips, because although I'd love to imagine I am the only zoning attorney in town, Rachel has been taking calls from every possible interested party and has been incredibly responsive. In fact, some of the changes in your amendments tonight are from conversations between our senior land planner, Josh Mike, and Rachel just this week. All of this being said, we're a little concerned that since items are being located in the text amendment in need of change just within the last 48 hours, that more time is needed, especially for my client in this approval stage. Namely, we are concerned that the text amendment until recently did not contemplate that the waiver could apply to someone or a developer with site plan approval. Now, that's been fixed as of tonight in one section, but we're not sure it applies across the board. We're also concerned about the fact that it's not clear that someone like Nova could come in for administrative minor site plan changes that should be under the old code, old requirements, not the new. Very, very important. There's a section that seems to include substations, battery storage, power generation, other equipment to be included as of right, but again, that's not clear. And just one final thing, Vice Chair, would I be able to add one more moment? Thank you very much. One item, I want to compliment staff on their vision of the waiver because it's solving a lot of the problems that aren't being solved in other jurisdictions. But there's one thing I think staff and the board and city council need to contemplate, which is the concept of the waiver is to avoid a takings. So if Nova has LI, PAD zoning today and a site plan in hand, when this goes through, they should be able to continue to develop. But one thing we're concerned about, and my apologies to Rachel, we haven't talked to you about this yet, so tonight I'm bringing this up, is that if you rezone from LI, you lose your rights under the waiver. If you rezone to another zoning district, that might be equitable. But what if you rezone to LI council use permit, LI CUP? That's not clear. If that kind of action loses your grandfathered rights to a data center, we'd like some clarity on that, because the reality in that situation is your base zoning is still LI and you shouldn't lose those rights. I appreciate that extra time. I can answer any questions, but for now, I'll sit down. Thank you.
Any questions? Appreciate
Thank
it. Next is Emily Rice.
A little shorter than the last speaker. Good afternoon. I'm Emily Rice, Vice President of Government Relations with B3 Strategies, 1642 East Culver Street in Phoenix. Our firm has been involved with data center policy since the initial computer data center program was established by the state legislature. I'm here today speaking on behalf of the Data Center Coalition. The Data Center Coalition is a membership association for the U.S. data center industry, representing leading data center owners and operators, as well as companies that lease large amounts of data center capacity. Of the Data Centers Coalition's 36 data center members, about half have a presence or a planned presence in Arizona. Data centers are a foundation for the advanced manufacturing and AI economy. As the City of Mesa considers adopting an ordinance establishing standards, the Data Center Coalition strongly encourages the Planning and Zoning Board, City staff, and City Council to continue its ongoing stakeholder engagement to identify impacts and resolve unintended consequences in the proposed ordinance. As the City Council considers the ordinance, the Data Center Coalition would respectfully request additional, I accidentally tapped something if that impacted your screens, would respectfully request additional consideration regarding noise, including utilizing a decibel level range appropriate for the zoning area, backup generators to establish flexibility for the city, utility, and data center to work together, and the impact that the ordinance will have on data centers currently in development within the city to ensure that the data centers are able to continue that development. DCC also encourages the city to permit variances to the development standards established in 1131-36 in order to allow the city maximum flexibility for future development decisions. From semiconductors and advanced manufacturing to AI, the companies Arizona is attracting today rely on low latency data processing, which is contingent on having a nearby data center. Data centers specifically help support Arizona's $2.3 billion cybersecurity sector, which relies on data centers to protect sensitive data and enable secure transactions. Our region's growing semiconductor industry, in which fabs deploy machine learning and real-time analytics to optimize yield, reduce defects, and manage supply chains. Data centers are also the second largest market for semiconductors after smartphones globally. Including direct, indirect, and induced effects, the data center industry contributed $11 billion to Arizona's GDP in 2023, and directly and indirectly generated $863 million in state and local revenues. In 2023, Arizona's data center industry directly employed 14,430 workers in high-wage roles, including engineering, cybersecurity, and facilities management. When accounting for indirect and induced effects, the industry supported 81,730 total jobs statewide, including 1 in every 12 jobs specifically in the technology sector. Every direct data center job in Arizona supports 5 jobs elsewhere in the economy. As city staff continues through its efforts in developing this ordinance and engaging with stakeholders, I would again respectfully request a pause on this effort to ensure that a full range of stakeholders can be engaged with prior to this ordinance being considered by a city council. Thank you so much.
Are there any questions? Appreciate it. Next, Sean Leroy.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Sean Leroy. I'm with Cyrus One. I'm here this evening to offer some comments on the proposed amendments and ordinance. Realizing, and I preface all the comments, realizing that in a sense they're in flux. So this letter was largely drafted before this evening and hearing what some of the further developments have been. We own 68 acres within the Elliott Road Tech Corridor in East Mesa. I'm here to request on behalf of Cyrus One to note our concerns, number one, about some ambiguities as we see in the proposed text amendment in its current form. And two, ask that you delay your recommendation to the Board of Supervisors or City Council to allow for some modest additional time to consider our comments and suggested revisions. In 2018, Cyrus One acquired the property and thereafter invested significant efforts to develop the property. That included submission of a pre-submittal conference application with the city staff to gather comments from a zoning, design, and site planning perspective. The feedback provided by the planning department helped foster an open and transparent relationship between Cyrus One and key city stakeholders and leaders. As we move forward through entitlements, we diligently implemented recommendations we received from planning staff, and members of the design review and planning and zoning boards, most notably additional screening measures, enhanced landscaping, elevated design, and architectural features. Ultimately, we received recommendation for approval from the Design Review Board and final approval from the Planning and Zoning Board in July of 2024. Relying on these approvals, we made further investments, completing design and engineering work and pursuing a building permit. Given these significant investments, Cyrus One's development rights have now been vested and are thus fully grandfathered under the law in existence when the city approved Cyrus One's site plan and special use permit. On this point, I'd call the board's attention to a letter submitted for the record by our council, Perkins Coie, yesterday, June 10th, 2025. Based on follow-up discussions with the city, we understand that it's the city's intent to allow property owners like Cyrus One, who have already approved site plans and special use permits, will be permitted to continue developing, constructing, and operating their data center projects in compliance with the law that existed when the city approved their project. Our worry is that the current text in its current form, of the ordinance does not clearly match the city's intent. The current language is extremely broad and potentially problematic with new requirements, including distance separation, new architectural standards, substation screening, and operational regulations. And on its face, the proposed ordinance could, as read and potentially mistakenly applied in ways that deprive property owners of their vested rights. Again, based on our discussions with the city, we understand that the city's intent is to grandfather property owners like Cyrus One who have vested rights, but we ask that the proposed ordinance be revised to make this grandfathering explicit. We remain committed to being a good neighbor and welcome continued collaboration and dialogue with the city. We just ask for some additional time so that the proposed ordinance text can be clarified before you forward it to City Council. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you. Next is Mark Bauer.
Good evening. My name is Mark Bauer, and I'm with Jones Lang LaSalle, and I'm a part of their National Data Center Solutions Site Selection Group. I've been in the Valley here since '87 and became really specialized in the telecommunications and data centers in the late '90s. So I've seen the evolution of this data center, which was started with, telecommunication companies. Core was 120 East Van Buren in downtown Phoenix, and it's slowly grown over time. I think most of our data centers back then, and if we could find 10 acres and get 5 to 10 megawatts of power, that was a data center at that time. Fast forward, 10 years ago, we need 50 megawatts to 100 megawatts. The last 5 years, we need as much as we can get, 300 megawatts to a gigawatt. I've represented a lot of the companies that have built data centers in Mesa. I think that the city of Mesa should be very excited about what they've been able to put together in terms of the companies that actually reside within that corridor, the Elliott Road corridor. I mean, you've got Microsoft, Google, AWS, Meta. You've got the major companies here. The tech investment that's been made already is in the tune of billions of dollars. The development of these data centers will continue to evolve and change. Meta built out 200 megawatts in Mesa. Their new footprint now would be the same footprint, but double their power, so 400 megawatts. And I want to be able to talk, a lot of people have talked about utilities, but the data centers and the developers are the ones that are actually writing the checks. So it's no longer APS and SRP with the burden of paying for utility upgrades. It's the customer. I'm very familiar right now with an upgrade that's a $1 billion upgrade. That $1 billion upgrade in that Elliott Road corridor is being paid for by the data center developers and the operators. It's not a direct impact on SRP. APS is doing the same thing. As a matter of fact, APS and SRP and the developers are, forming partnerships. It is a partnership. It's trying to find a solution to be able to deliver the power, to the sites and upgrade. And getting, as a developer coming in to buy a site that might be zoned and approved for a data center, that's one worry they don't have to worry about because they've got the next 3 to 5 years to worry about how do they get power to these sites. So in essence, I look at embracing the data center, making sure that this amendment change doesn't have a negative effect, but that you work with the developers and the technology people, because these data centers will change over time. They've changed over time over the last 25 years since I've been in the business. And again, the footprints aren't necessarily getting bigger, but the densities are getting higher. And they're the ones that are running to try to find efficient ways to use less water, use less energy and be very efficient. So know that there's billions of dollars being invested, and a lot of those dollars, especially from a power rate perspective, the tax that comes in goes directly to that community. So the city of Mesa is benefiting without really expending any money that could be used for adding to the public schools, to the fire departments, police departments. And that's about all I have to say right now.
Appreciate your
Any
comment.
questions? Yeah.
Thank you. Next, Jay Irvin.
Good evening, Vice Chair and board members. My name's Jay Irvin. I'm with Butler Design Group, local architecture firm here in the Valley. I'm a project manager and associate. Wanted to thank you for the opportunity to speak. We truly appreciate the city's initiative to proactively address data center development through this proposed text amendment. While we support the intent, ensuring compatibility with the community, we believe several of the proposed requirements may need further discussion to ensure they are practical, enforceable, and align with the real-world function of data centers. Just to list a few, the first one, 400-foot setback, is a significant departure from standards in GI, HI, and LI zoning. Setbacks in those areas typically range from 15 to 30 feet. Even when adjacent to residential, the standard is usually 20 feet plus 1 foot for every foot of building height. If the project meets sound and visual screenings, it's unclear what additional benefits this 400-foot buffer provides, particularly when space is at a premium in many areas. Next, the 60-foot height limit could unintentionally hinder functional design. Data centers often require greater internal clearances to accommodate equipment, cooling systems, and structural infrastructure. We suggest reevaluating this height limit, especially if adequate architectural screening is provided. Next, for parking, the purpose of 1 per 1,000 square foot ratio could result in large, underutilized lots. Data centers are not high-capacity occupational facilities. This approach may create unnecessary paving, heat island effects, and poor site aesthetics. Perhaps a more user-specific or performance-based approach would be appropriate. The proposed mechanical yard location requirements also pose a challenge. Requiring yards to be placed away from entrances, public facades, residential uses, and any roads makes siting these systems extremely difficult. A performance-based approach focusing on effective screening could achieve the same goals with greater flexibility. Finally, mechanical screening of equipment. Calling for a solid masonry wall tall enough to fully screen the highest adjacent piece of equipment may itself become a visual issue. In some cases, the screening would create more of an eyesore than the equipment. We'd encourage exploration of other solutions like architectural enclosures or integrated design elements. In closing, we respectfully ask the Commission to consider delaying adoption of this amendment and convening a stakeholder meeting, a collaborative discussion involving the city staff, industry professionals, and designers who would help ensure these standards are balanced, practical, and reflective of both community and operational needs. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Next is Tom Maples.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to address you. I come here representing the Arizona chapter of the 7x24 Exchange and our 60-member chapter, 60-member companies. We're a collaborative good neighbor and are just urging that there be a stakeholder meeting and there be some public discussion on this issue before their votes. There has not been a public hearing. And the staff is working incredibly hard, but we haven't seen all the changes. It's hard to digest, as someone else said. You know, if you come in with four-hour-old news, you're out of date. So asking for that collaboration. I want to talk about three things. There is a really robust data center hub in Arizona, and U-Mesa are a good part of that, and it's something to be proud of, not something to be embarrassed about. It has fostered companies like Uber. It is a data center for SRP. It is, in the future, for advanced air mobility. The Honeywells and the Boeings and the Waymos all want to be in a place that the Valley is embracing that, but not allowing a data center for it. And it is really severely restricting. GI and HI is less than 0.75% of your land. It's not, it is restricting to say that that's where it's going to be allowed, and to ask other folks to invest their money in others and chase a waiver. That doesn't feel good to invest billions of dollars and chase a waiver. So need to think about that. And the last point, talking about parking, and Jay raised it. I understand that there's concern about how many bodies are permanent employees in a data center, and that's been raised. To take a real world confidential example, there's a 16, it's not in Mesa, but it's true, 16 acres, 2-story, 240,000 square feet. That's kind of a typical data center, okay? So using numbers that we heard that there's 1 employee per acre, and I would dispute that, but that would say you should have 16 parking spaces. As written, you would ask for 240 parking spaces. He talked about heat island, he talked about it would really not be visually appealing for you to require that. The truth is obviously somewhere in between. Is there one, is there 1 per 1,000, or is there 1 employee per acre? But it's really a lot less than what's being called for. It's really a lot closer to 16 spaces being required. It's probably 30 spaces, not 240. So thank you very much for your time. Just asking for a delay so that we can have a stakeholder meeting.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm going to try my best on this one. CPAN Alizadeh? Am I close?
Almost there.
All right, sorry.
Good evening, Vice Chair Pitcher and members of the board. My name is Sapand Alizadeh. I am the Government Relations Specialist for the Arizona Technology Council, 2800 North Central Avenue, Suite 1530. And I am here to echo the comments made by all our data center partners who have spoken tonight. You know, the two phrases I keep hearing over and over from Mesa's leaders are economic opportunity and economic innovation. Mesa is a hub for both. We're seeing companies from all across the country come to this wonderful city, relocate and set up operations. And we're especially seeing it in the data center world. So with data centers, we want to become a hub for the AI economy. The AI economy is rooted in data centers. You can't have one without the other. These data centers help process all the information that's being used to advance the AI economy. As I said, Mayor Freeman was at the ribbon cutting for Meta's data center on January 31st, and he recognized that in his comments, and he repeated that in his State of the City on May 6th, that again, economic opportunity, economic innovation are key to Mesa's future. So that's my sort of professional spiel, but I also want to give my personal comments. As you see, my right hand is in a brace. I was in a car accident last year in a very, very rural part of Phoenix. And a part of Phoenix I'm never really in. And Phoenix Fire and Medical Rescue arrived, thankfully, to help me out and take me to the nearest hospital. And the nearest hospital is one I've never been to. When I got to that medical facility, the doctors there, the professionals there, the medical professionals, they all had access to my pre-existing medical conditions right away. They knew what I was allergic to. They knew what medicines I could take and couldn't take. And that was because of a server in a data center somewhere that hosted this information. That data center saved my life and allowed me the privilege of being here before you tonight. So as you think about this ordinance, as our data center partners have said, please take into account all the economics behind it, but also realize there's a personal element too. And please take your time. Let's work together with the stakeholders to come up with an ordinance that helps create jobs and also saves lives. So thank you very much, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you all. Thank you, Board.
Thank you. That's the last card I have. Is that all we got? Okay, then I'll close the public hearing. I'll open any discussion. We had a great discussion downstairs. Are there any other comments that any of you would like to make on this matter?
Yeah, I have some I'd like to roll through for the record on and I am in agreement that especially these last changes coming through, and with it sounds like things are still in flux to some degree. I don't know that this doesn't feel like it's fully baked yet, and I'll go through and I'll note some concerns or suggestions possibly on it. So first off, with the definition and then how that relates to some other criteria. And so the definition, a data center, a facility or portion of a facility primarily used to store and manage computer systems, servers, networking equipment, and components related to digital data operations. And this includes related infrastructure, office space, staff areas necessary to support digital data operations. And with just this being in flux like it is, the definition and the things that are included in there, when you tie that back to the code and the criteria for accessory use, being no more than 10% of the building footprint. By the time you start adding in infrastructure, office space, staff areas, you get to 10% pretty quickly. And even though there was, it's the data component, not just the IT, but I mean, it says servers, networking equipment, that switches, all these things, it can pretty easily be construed to be that. And I mean, I think of my current employment in our business operations, the space is pretty close to that now, and this doesn't give a lot of room for that. So that's a concern is if that's the definition that we stick with, then going through the criteria in in section 113136 for those four criteria that it can be no more than 10% of the footprint. I think that's too small. And I'm not sure if you meet the other criteria for that you don't lease data storage or processing services to third parties. That seems like the primary criteria. If for your own needs, it's more than 10%, then that's part of business. And it feels like over the years, own business, needs that stuff continues to grow, and that you would hate to have a large employer going to expand, their IT or they need some data, however you meet the definition, expand it, and then it's like, oh, you can't meet that because this ordinance doesn't let you have more than 10%. And I get grandfathered and everything. It just feels like it's really low. And then the data center not housed in a separate standalone structure on the parcel. In my head, I'm trying to picture why that's a criteria. If for some reason they have that in a small, it feels like that if, as long, by data center, that means you're leasing storage data or processing services to third parties. So these other things, I don't know why they're in there to add on to it. And then the public input as well. There was a lot of companies listed as having public input. Some of those companies showed up today. And so it doesn't feel like that all the parties that were listed as having dialogue, that there's an agreement. And I'm not asking staff to have full agreement from everybody on it. That's not what we do, but it feels like there's still a lot of collaboration to come out with something that it is probably a little bit better than what we have right now. Screening, I fully agree 100% on that. There should be up to some height limit or alternate means for if you have a specific piece of ground-mounted equipment that's 15 feet high. You hate to have, a huge 15-foot high fence that then becomes unsightly around that, where you can accommodate that in other ways. The city does that on their own facilities and equipment, water systems or things. If they have things taller, they don't build a 30-foot wall around a water tank. They do different things to screen around the water tank. So it feels like that's something that needs some refinement. The one space per 1,000 parking. So if we go to the PAD, and frankly, I'm fully in support of the PAD. I've always liked it because it gives site-specific criteria. So it lets staff, it lets council, dictate these criteria on a site-by-site basis. And we're talking about the preference for this ordinance being a City of Chandler ordinance. For the last 30 years, the majority of Chandler zoning cases are all PADs because it's all site-specific zoning with the PAD. And so if we're doing that, then it feels like the parking is something that can be just determined user by user, that because different users are going to have different, and I get different office space, different staffing needs, that it's something that each user, it's on there when they come with their application, it's on them to show, what all those spaces are and what it needs to be, so that we're efficiently using the land for those things as well. And on the PAD, and we talked about it downstairs, I mean, if we're changing it already, dramatically changing to allow the way the PAD operates, I get that staff is looking at other changes down the road, but if the minimum land area is something that's a thought, I mean, why not just do it right now? It sounds like it's going to be 6 months before initiating, maybe longer than that before anything happens. If it's a pretty simple document, if that's something in process, and if there's not a compelling reason to leave the minimum site area at 5 acres, then suggestion to just do that now as well. And Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Jamie, do you have any?
So a couple of my comments are, I think, listening to everyone who showed up here today, and then some of the folks seem to represent organizations, 30 or 60 folks that say that they're part of their organizations that they're representing. Just seems like there's just a lot of questions, from little details, bigger details. People are not super sure if it applies to them or what part it doesn't apply to. There was things brought up here on setbacks, the backup generators, what's the waiver, what if we rezone, parking, screening. I mean, I'm just hearing like a whole litany list of like things that people have questions on. I think for the most part, folks don't seem like they're totally opposed to this. I think that everyone, I would say 4 out of the 6 folks who came up today just asked for more time and the ability to kind of scour through this and make sure it covers folks. Another concern I do have is the folks that have come here today, and also the information that we've received, seem to all be from folks who are approved and haven't quite yet built. So I think it seems as though we're hearing, I assume the ones who are built are good to go, right? How Ben first came up and said there's 3 groups here. The ones who are built, I assume they're fine and good. The ones here, we seem to be hearing from those that are approved that haven't quite built yet, are wondering what's going on. I feel like we haven't heard from a group of folks who have the right today that are not here at this hearing. So I'm wondering, has that message gone to those folks, or do they all just, they're good with what's going on, or is there a group of folks that have the right today that haven't come before that, or do they know about what's happening here and how that could impact potentially what they're hoping to get approved? So I think I have concerns that this is just not as foolproof and ready to move forward. So that's my comments.
Appreciate it. You good? My comment is a couple of things. I was on the, I've been in a lot of economic development boards in the city of Mesa for the past 15 plus years. We fought really, really hard to get you stakeholders here into the city of Mesa. And I think, you know, from this ordinance, I don't see anything that necessarily that we're not trying to drive the stakeholders out. I think it's more clarification than anything. And I think that from what I heard, there's a lot of things, including from the board, that need to be clarified. And we've got 3 of our board members that aren't even here and can offer, you know, this clarification as well. And so I think that I think we need more time. And what I would suggest is we table this for now, for a period of time, in order to give not only board members the chance to review it who aren't here, but also more input from the stakeholders, like you've said. So I propose and would move that we table this for now till we do it for a date certain, and if we have to push it again, we can. But why don't we table this for the next meeting on the 25th? And then let's see if we need to push it out further once the stakeholders and the board members get a chance to review some of these revisions that we've talked about. So I move for that. Is there a second?
Second.
If we could vote, please. The motion is unanimously approved, so we will we'll see this tabled for a couple of weeks and then give everyone a chance to talk. That's all that's on the agenda today. Are there any updates and so forth?
Vice Chair Pitcher, no additional updates. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
And that is approved. Thank you, everyone.